Everybody's talking about a COVID-19 vaccine. In fact, it seems to be the most popularly articulated scenario for any kind of solution to the crisis that we're in. But where is that vaccine going to come from? Our next guest is Dana Brown. She is the director of the Next Systems Project at the Democracy Collaborative. Dana, welcome. Thanks for joining me. We are all waiting for a vaccine. That seems to be the critical thing. Why don't we have one?
That's a great question, Laura, and thank you for having me on to discuss this. I think the crisis that we're living today really lays bare the fruits of privatized medicine and a whole medicines system. Not only does the profit motive lead to decisions like those to downsize our hospital sector as a whole. I mean, we've lost about 500,000 hospital beds since the mid-1970s. But it also leads to decisions like private pharmaceutical manufacturers and developers investing in drugs that can make them lots of money rather than things like vaccines, which are often money losers. So shareholders have no interest in pursuing these things.
But people are looking at this today and saying, what do you mean it's not a moneymaker? If we had a vaccine, somebody would be making money hand over fist.
Vaccine development is an expensive, long, and risky process, and that's precisely why it lends itself to the kind of patient capital that the public sector can put up, and why it's not such a great bet for the private sector and venture capital, which is so set on really immediate short-term returns. Also, as you can imagine, private sector finance and private pharma is really interested in drugs that you can use to treat chronic conditions, something like a heart condition, where you can take the drug over and over and over again for the rest of your life. But preventing disease isn't actually their business model.
Interesting. So one of the things that you're raising is the prevention per se isn't really very popular in the market.
Doesn't seem to be. There used to be whole companies devoted to that. And now that it's big conglomerates that are saying, well, do we invest in making a vaccine or do we invest in making the next Viagra, right? So vaccines are competing against other medications and they keep losing out.
We're maybe forgetting in this conversation that it is called a coronavirus, a new virus. COVID-19 suggests were there 18 others? I mean, how many years have gone by with a virus like this out there as a threat?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, this is actually the third novel coronavirus outbreak in the last about 20 years. So SARS and MERS were coronavirus, slightly different than the one that we've got right now. And there has been investment and interest in developing a vaccine for coronavirus during that whole period of time. In fact, the U.S. National Institutes of Health has put up $700 million alone into incentivizing vaccine development. But again, they're really relying on the private sector to take an interest and also invest in that last phase of development and clinical trials and bringing a drug to market. So despite the fact that the public sector already makes an enormous investment here, we're asking the private sector to take things over the finish line. And it's just not happening in terms of certain vaccines, antibiotics, drugs for neglected tropical diseases, things that aren't moneymakers.
So if the public is putting all of this money up at the front end, why don't we own it?
Well, that's kind of the question that a lot of us are wrestling with. And you'll see activists around the world right now, calling up whether it's the WHO or the UN or their own national governments and saying, oh, for all coronavirus related vaccines or treatments, we have to make sure that the intellectual property is open, that everybody has access, that the medication can be free. And I think this is extraordinarily important. And these are the sorts of things that got, tens of thousands of people access to important HIV medications in the past. But this is all ex post facto, right? We're running to catch up with the problems of a broken system now, rather than saying, how do we assure on the front end that what is largely paid for by the public is then available to everyone in the public after all?
So do other countries do this differently? And how could we do it differently going forward?
And I think, what I'm saying and what a lot of colleagues that I work with are saying is the experiment of the last number of decades is not working for public health. And we can go back. We can reclaim medicines as a public good and say, maybe we have to develop medicines entirely in the public domain, in the public sector, and then keep them as a sort of public trust in, open source patent pools, right? Or with copyleft restrictions. But there are a number of ways to do this. And as you said, there are countries that do it differently. Cuba is probably the most famous example where their entirely public biopharmaceutical system is both developing new drugs, including vaccines and cancer immunotherapies, as well as producing low-cost generics. But there are a number of countries, Thailand, China, India, Brazil, where there are robust public pharmaceutical sectors that often function alongside the private sector, doing both R&D and production of medications.
But you said that had changed in this country when?
This interview in its entirety is available to our Patreon partners.
Join our Patreon community at patreon.com/The LF Show. You don't have to give, but we hope you will. While we're physically distant, let's dig deep for a better future. For background information, our Forward Thinking on COVID series, and more, go to patreon.com/The LF Show.